English statesman Robert Cecil once said, "Virtue consists in avoiding scandal and venereal disease."
Hello and welcome to the Mark and Pete Show. This week we ask the question, can Boris Johnson afford another scandal? Yes, folks, this time another scandal has come about with Boris Johnson. Now, he has refused to answer questions about reports of a row between him and his partner, in which the police were called out to his flat in London. Now, speaking at a Tory party hustings meeting in Birmingham, Mr. Johnson said people did not want to hear about the reported row between him and Carrie Symonds. Well, the Guardian newspaper has said that Mr. Symonds was heard telling the Tory MP to get off me and get out of my flat. And many neighbours were very concerned about what was going on, hearing the smashing of plates and lots of raucous noise. Well, to you, Mr. Johnson, is this yet another scandal? Well, unfortunately, it can be explosive. A frank exchange of different views can start a spat and light a fuse, but when it becomes front-page news, you'll be left in pieces and always lose. Clergyman Pete, I ask you this simple question. Can Boris Johnson get away with another scandal and still become Prime Minister?
Well, here's my answer in short, businessman Mark. Yes, I think he can afford another scandal of a certain type, to do with relationships, a sexual scandal. It's factored into people's view of him.
Really?
But if there's, it depends on the type or severity of the scandal. The word scandal is interesting. It comes from the Greek word skandalon, which it doesn't particularly mean something that hurts your feelings or something that makes you blush or something embarrassing specifically. It includes that, but it's more the idea a scandalon is as a trap or a snare or a stone that causes you to stumble. You're walking along and something makes you fall down. That's the scandal, is what you stumbled on. And that's what could happen to Boris Johnson if it's a big enough stone, or put another way, a severe or different enough scandal, a different sort of things, financial impropriety, that sort of thing. That could get to him. But this sort of scandal, I just don't think that it's going to have an effect, simply because, it's terrible to say this, but people have such a low view of his personal morality in relationships anyway, that hearing it's just one more thing, that's my point.
Quite.
So it doesn't change your view of him. You've already made allowances for that, or the people who are going to vote for him have. So I think my short answer is he can survive quite a few of these scandals if they're of that same type, something to do with him not coping well with his sexual relationships.
Yes, and I'm going to put the question to you. There was actually put the question to him, actually, at the hustings meeting in Birmingham, which is a question to Boris Johnson himself, but maybe you could probably answer the question for him. It says, the question that was put was, you are running for the office of not just Conservative Party leader, but Prime Minister. So a lot of people who admire your politics do call you into question of your character, and it is incumbent on you to answer the question. Now, Mr. Johnson accepted that that was a fair point, but said that he was a man who keeps to just political promises. Now, that's all very well. But surely, going back to this point about credibility and integrity, and let's talk about the religion, the business of religion here, taking the moralistic viewpoint and your view, should a man who perhaps has these problems that potentially could unfold even further when he's a premier, a leader of a nation, is he really the right fit for the person that we need to not only get us out of Brexit, but to lead the country on post-Brexit?
Yes, it is a difficulty, and I'm not saying that I think that he'd make a good Prime Minister or that I would vote for him. I was just addressing the very specific question that we're looking at. Can he become Prime Minister with another scandal? The answer is yes. In my view, the question is, should he? That you could add to it, another question. And the answer is no. I don't think he's the right person to be Prime Minister. However, I'm not sure that his main opponent is either. And there are just two people, of course, in position now. So even with my view that really he's not a good fit for the role because of his instabilities, unreliability shown by his sexual relationships, could well carry over. And we've seen it carry over with him changing his view on things, on what you would regard sometimes as principles. And his sort of impulsive nature, I guess, is what I'm looking at. His impulsive nature, which we've seen, is I can give examples now. He's impulsive in his sexual relationships. We can see he's moving from one woman to another. He's impulsive in the way that he speaks when he's in diplomatic situations. So he says things that are offensive. He's not really controlling what he says. He's being too impulsive. So this would make him a bad fit for the role of Prime Minister. But I think he'll still get the job.
Well, there you go. Now, the interesting outcome from my point of view, now the Conservative Party do have choices. Now, what I say by choices here is that clearly there are only two candidates left. His opponent is Jeremy Hunt. Now, this is a man who, by contrast, has a totally different demeanour, totally different track record, and interestingly at the hustings meeting, particularly in Birmingham, addressed most of his questions with a slightly more serious side, played it straight and gave very carefully considered answers. He was slightly more diplomatic in his answers. You could also argue more statesmanlike in his approach. Whereas, unfortunately, Mr. Johnson just looked completely uncomfortable at times with his answers. He bumbled it, he diverted and digressed. And unfortunately, that's the thing that I think now will probably unfold. I think these hustings gatherings are actually a good thing because many people think they're rather exhaustive. But I actually disagree. I think what we will see over the course of time, over the next few weeks, is actually we'll get to really know the individuals, but we'll really hopefully get to understand what those individuals would do against the key subjects. Brexit is obviously one of them. Now, I know that Mr. Johnson has made himself very, very clear that whatever happens, we're going to go out on the 31st of October. Now, many people will say, okay, that's a clear position. But when it comes to how he's going to do that and what the consequence will be and what the plan is after that, he has no answer. Jeremy Hunt, quite conversely, has been talking this through. And I don't want to necessarily go through all the rhetoric and the answers because you just need to listen to his commentary. Now, I do agree, and I'm going to take a step back, and I would agree with Clergyman Pete. I don't think necessarily, unfortunately, that we've found ourselves in a position where one of these two men is going to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I really feel ashamed in many ways that it's come to this, that those are the only two best candidates that we've got. But nevertheless, one of them will go forward and have to tackle some of the big issues. Coming back to the big question, which is, can Boris Johnson actually survive a scandal? I'm going to make another prediction here because we love these on the Mark and Pete show. Yeah. I think that there's more to come.
Go on.
I think when it comes to Boris Johnson, he is just jam-packed with incidents waiting to happen.
Sure.
And I think that whereas I'm not saying that there won't be issues against Jeremy Hunt's line of politics and possibly some of his policies, and people will certainly attack him for that, and they would definitely quiz his strategy on some of the big issues like Brexit. But I come back to the bigger point is that I just think that where Boris Johnson is today in his life, in his personal life and in his professional life, he is too divisive. And I do not believe that, in my opinion, that he would be right for us. I'm not saying Jeremy Hunt's an ideal candidate, but he's a lot better than Boris Johnson.
Yes, well, I just closing. I just like to say that the Brexit question, leaving the European Union, is the vital question, and it changes everything. See, I think that the electorate is simply the members of the Tory party, about 160,000 people, a tiny percentage of the actual electorate. But of course, it's quite reasonable because we don't elect a prime minister like a president. We elect individual MPs and the party with the most forms of government. So it's quite right that they elect that they elect someone until the next general election. But that being the case, and the majority, according to polling, the majority of the membership want Brexit and want it deal or no deal, as it's
Yeah,
often put.
and
And so because they see Boris Johnson as having said that, and whether or not it's real or not, that they see that in him, his sort of bullish nature, and even the fact that he's unpleasant with women, seems him as he's a bit of a thug. They want that in someone because they want someone to stand up to the EU, and so I don't think that's
irony here, because
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know I'm not normally a Tory supporter here, folks,
No,
but having said that, I painstakingly listened to both men in the first hustings, and sadly, like it or not, Jeremy Hunt made his position really clear without regurgitating this, because it's not necessarily this particular show isn't about just the politics. But Jeremy Hunt made it very, very clear that he would actually exhaust every possible angle to get a deal. But if he couldn't, he would come out.
Yes,
on the 31st.
I know. I know.
So,
I'm not talking about what they've actually said. My point was about the general view of people.
Sure.
And I think that this sort of a bullish, almost boyish character, being brash in that way, in the way that he's again, behaving badly, basically, adds to the character of someone who will stand up on your behalf. So I think it's, if anything, having a little bit of scandal adds to his persona.
To conclude this point,
I don't think it's right. I'm just saying that's what I believe is going to happen.
So let's conclude this point, because there's just one angle that I'd like to cover here, which is about the scandal of Boris Johnson. Many people believe that he is just a Trump clone, in the sense that Trump, who notoriously comes out with some rather contentious commentary and has been bullish and sadly, or rightly or wrongly, has taken a particular view on his communications. Boris Johnson has fitted pretty much in the same ilk. Do you believe that actually this will help us on an international front with Johnson being at the helm?
Do I?
Because it's a similar type of approach that
I don't think he. I don't see that. I know people are saying that, and they both have funny hair. The perception is everything. I don't see them as being similar at all, really, in their approach, other than that they say crazy things. But they say crazy things for different reasons. Trump does it because he's got this persona and he's going for it. Boris Johnson has this persona where he bumbles around, but his saying outrageous things isn't part of it. Some things are, but his accidentally insulting people isn't, that he does. So with Trump, who is a great negotiator and businessman, that's the reputation he has. That's very different from Boris Johnson, the journalist and politician being involved on the political scene. He's almost, from the Trump point of view, one of the swamp. I think they're very different. Boris Johnson is, part of it. He's a career politician, really. So I see him as very different to Trump, although there are certain surface similarities. However, I think the similarity, if he gets in, which, as I say, I believe he will as Prime Minister, I think Trump will play to them. I think he will try and have him as his bosom chum, and so try and get him into some deals that are advantageous to the US.
Of course.
We'll see what happens.
Well, indeed. Well, many people believe that Boris Johnson is so far ahead with this particular leadership election that no matter what happens, he is going to become Prime Minister. But maybe, listeners, you've got a different view. Maybe this is the time when perhaps the hustings will expose Mr. Johnson and there will be more scandals to come. Why not log on to markandpete.com and let us know your thoughts? Well, we'll all listen to the hustings and to see the next action and shenanigans in the saga of Boris Johnson. Join us next time for colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.